Hey friends, this is Worm. What did you expect? And today we are talking, of course, about Warlock Exotics and how I feel they should be changed. So yeah, let's not beat around the bush, get right into it. Starting off with the helmets. Number one, the Skull of Dire Ahamkara. So of course, this helmet again saw a lot of play back in the day, but it's since dropped off. Its perk here, Actual Grandeur, provides additional damage resistance during Nova Bomb, and Nova Bomb kills Grand Super Energy. The reason you don't see this very often is because again, it falls into one of those situations where it's a super only exotic, and that's the reason you don't see it. So for this perk, the idea behind it is of course throwing tons of Nova Bombs, right? Why don't we add an additional feature to this? I think that an additional feature should be added in which basically getting multi kills with weapons or grenades or anything will spawn orbs of light that you can pick up. And just like with the Star Eater scales for Hunter, the orbs of light that you do pick up give you more super energy. This would help you, of course, build up supers faster and throw them more. Now, I think it still has the issue of, it's still a super based exotic. But I feel like that change alone would help it to see more use. You throw it on during a nightfalls because it's like, okay, I'm going to get, multi kills with a grenade with Devour. And next thing I know, I'm going to have 20% of my super back, you know? Uh, and then pick up the orbs of light and stuff. Something similar to that. If you wanted to, you could build some way into void. You could do void multi kills. So it funnels somebody into using some kind of void weapon to synergize with the void subclass. But I think that change alone would really improve the Skull of Dire Ahamkara. Other than that, it looks very, very cool. So yeah. Moving on to Crown of Tempest. Now, Crown of Tempest is actually a phenomenal exotic, and you see it quite a bit. Its perk here, Conduction Tines. Arc ability or Jolt final blows increase the recharge rate of your arc abilities and extend the duration of Storm Trance. This is an exotic that sees a lot of play currently. It sees a lot of play currently, but it's not because this exotic is busted. It's more so because this exotic is, or because the subclass is very, very strong. I don't see any improvements that need to be made to Crown of Tempest, and I don't see any nerfs that need to come. In fact, I would actually, I don't know if I would change this at all because the conduction times perk that it has, I think is in a pretty good spot. I think that if you want to see this used less, Arc 3.0 needs to be reined in a little bit. And I think once Lightfall drops and Strand is released to us, I think we'll see a substantial drop in the usage of Crown of Tempests because people are not going to be using Arc anymore because this is an Arc-based exotic. But change-wise, I don't think anything really needs to change. And if I'm not mistaken, for Warlock, that's kind of a common trend. There's a lot of exotics in here that are pretty decent where they are. But let's move on to I Have Another World. I Have Another World, Cerebral Uplink, highlights priority targets and improves the regeneration speed of your grenade, melee, and rift abilities. Provides a small benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons. So basically what this exotic does is it just gives you +3 to all of your tiers here. Okay, and this is the only, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only exotic or really gear piece in game that can extend you past that tier 10. So let's add tier 10 recovery. It could actually essentially give me a tier 13 rift cooldown, which is very, very good. Of course, it also highlights priority targets and then gives airborne effectiveness buff. This one, it's in a tough spot because it's decent. It is one that's back in the day was substantially more used because that's that boost that it gave you to your grenades, melee, and rift was a lot better than it is now. Now, of course, you get those abilities back incredibly fast. And I know I've seen some builds lately featuring Eye of Another World, but I feel like it needs to have some change made to it. And I would say the best way to go about doing that is change it to some type of subclass specific, or not subclass specific, but based on your subclass, it gives you a specific benefit. As solar, you get +2 additional recovery. As arc, you get plus whatever mobility. As void, you get plus resilience, and as stasis, something along those lines, just to give it more of a a subclass specific role. And I think that'd be a pretty decent change, because again, it's pretty good. It just, oops, sorry, dang light keeps falling. It's pretty good, but it just doesn't see a lot of play. I would also say that you could do something similar to Skull of Dire Ahamkara, the recommendation that I had with Skull of Dire Ahamkara, and make it so that picking up orbs of power grants additional super energy, or it grants ability energy to all of your abilities here. Imagine, not only do you have faster cooldown, but you have 10% for every orb of power you pick up to all ability cooldowns. And I think that would tremendously bring the exotic up. Now, in high level content, I think this thing sees more play in high level content than it does in low level content, which is kind of unique, because I feel like most exotics see more play in low level environments and not as much in high level. So yeah, cerebral uplink, just give us the ability to potentially get additional ability energy for picking up orbs of power. And yeah, and maybe add precision kills create orbs of power, or something like that. Or precision kills have the chance to create orbs of power. I think that'd be a pretty decent change for Eye of Another World. But let's go on to Nezarec Sin. Now, Nezarec Sin, Abyssal Extractors, void damage kills increase ability energy recharge rate. This one is very good, because any void kills, so if you got Funnel Web, if you've got Retrofit Escapade, of course your void subclass, increases your ability recharge rate. Now, the unique thing about this helmet is it's not specific to the void subclass. So you could use this helmet on arc with void weapons and have a similar benefit. For this one, its perk is very, very simple, but it's very good. I still see a lot of people use it. It sees a fair amount of usage, and I think that where it is probably in a pretty decent spot. It's got viability in high level content. It's got viability in low level content. I think the only change I would make maybe is the void, when you get void damage kills, depending on the health of the enemy, you get additional recharge rate, or you get additional time. Because if I'm not mistaken, if you kill a champion, you get 2 seconds added on. If you kill a drag, you get 2 seconds added on. I would change that so that if you kill a champion, you get 7 seconds added on, because I think the timer goes up to 20 seconds, which is pretty good. But Abyssal Extractor is pretty good exotic. Like we said, a lot of Warlock's exotic are already in a pretty decent spot. But I think that's the only thing I would change with this, is that depending on the difficulty of the enemy, you get more exotic ability energy. And that's Nezarec Sin. On to the Stag. Okay. Stag, exotic perk Dearly Departed. Your rift provides damage reductions to allied guardians standing in it. Grants rift energy when you are critically wounded. On your death, you create a healing rift at or where your corpse was. This exotic, just like the last couple, is in a good spot. I think that I would add an additional functionality to the rift of some sort. I would almost say if it gave if when you were critically wounded, it would automatically slap your rift down. Could potentially be a neat idea, but I know that would cross kind of into the Promethean Spur. No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. Maybe you know, when you get injured or when you're critically wounded, you would automatically put a rift down. It would consume your rift energy, of course. Or I guess it would consume half your rift energy, because when you're critically wounded, you get half energy back. I don't know. This one's a weird one. It's in. I feel like its perk is pretty balanced. However, it doesn't see a lot of play. And I think the reason why is because as a, like, especially in high level content, you don't plan on getting injured a lot. And if you are injured, you're typically dead. You know, in Grandmaster Nightfalls, for example, you don't survive being critically injured. And I think that that's kind of the issue. I think a change that I would probably make to this is whenever your shields are broken, you get 5 seconds of speed boost and 50% damage reduction, allowing you to get to cover. And I think that would probably see substantial increase in play inside of PvE. PvP, I think, is fine in PvP. I wouldn't touch it in PvP. But I'd say, yeah, if a, or actually, no, I take that back. In PvP, you wouldn't get a 50%. You get like a 10% damage reduction or something along those lines, so that you could retreat to safety and put your rift down. And I think that'd be a fair change. I think that you'd see more players have a desire to use this in high level content, because, you know, once you're red bar, you're no longer just one shot. You know, if a boomer, a hive boomer, is shooting at you, and it critically injures you, you get 7 seconds, for example, to run to cover and put your rift down, and you basically just got your rift back because you've got critically wounded, and gives you 50% rift energy. I think that'd be a pretty fair change. But let's move on from the stag to Verity's Brow. Primary change this needs is a change to its aesthetic, because it is the ugliest exotic pizza armor in the game, hands down. But its perk here, it's kind of a long one. The fourth magic. Weapon final blows with a damage type matching your subclass energy grant death throws, which provides a grenade damage bonus and grants grenade energy. When you have death throws and throw a grenade, nearby allies gain greatly increased grenade regeneration for a short time. I'll be honest with y'all, I really think that the reason this exotic doesn't see more play is because it's just so ugly. Because its perk is very, very strong. Of course, when you're using you know, matching elemental stuff, grenade or melee, grenades, weapons, everything like that, it just boosts the heck out of your grenades, and it boosts your allies' grenades. I think this is in a good spot, with the exception of the fact that it's absolutely disgusting and ugly and needs to be changed. Like, I feel like if you just removed all this goofy stuff right here, it would actually look pretty cool, because the metal here, like the gold, the silver, or maybe that's orange, I can't tell, actually looks pretty cool. Get rid of the crusties on it though. That's the only change I'd make to that, because I think if you buffed it in any way, it would become incredibly strong. It's already very strong, but I think it would become even more strong. I think the one change I would make is when you have death throws, that increases the damage of the grenade. Oh, wait. Oh, never mind. It does. Sorry. It does grenade. Yeah, I wouldn't change anything on this, except for the look. It looks so ugly. But let's move on to Apotheosis Veil. This right here is probably no. Definitely the worst exotic in Destiny 2. Its perk here, Insatiable. Immediately regenerate health, melee, grenade, and rift energy upon activating your super. Nearby allies recharge class abilities faster. This, I don't think I've ever seen anybody use this outside of in early Destiny 1 days. Or not Destiny 1, but early Warmind days, I guess we should say, but which is still in the early days of Destiny. The perk here, I don't know. I feel like this is one that would need a total rework. Okay, we need added features. God, that light just won't stay there, will it? It needs a lot of added features. I would say, first of all, this is one that really revolves around your super. And we've talked about super exotic, so I think that this should change. So immediately regenerate health, melee, and grenade, and rift energy upon activating your super. I think that part's fine and should stay. Nearby allies recharge class abilities faster. I also think that that should stay. And this seems to be almost like a mix between a support and a defense exotic. So I think that we should add either play into those roles heavily, or we should mix it up and give it a third offensive role. Now, I think that a potential idea for this weapon is, again, make it subclass specific, but basically grants it, if you're using a stasis subclass, give it the ability to have basically headstone on your weapon. So precision kills create a stasis crystal. If you're using solar, kills will scorch targets. If you're using art, kills, it basically gives your weapons volt shot. And then if you are using void, it gives them not volatile rounds, repulsor brace. I think that that would be a pretty fair option, because that would allow basically, I don't want to say any weapon. I think it should be limited to subclass specific weapons. But let's say, you've got, what's a good, let me think here. Vex Mythoclast, for example, because I use Vex Mythoclast all the time. Vex Mythoclast, and you have this helmet on. Your Vex Mythoclast now scorches enemies when you get kills. That would be, I think that would bring this up substantially in the meta, because there are all kinds of exotics that could synergize wonderfully with this. And I think I think that it could really benefit from adding those effects to your weapons. To your subclass specific weapons. Again, I don't think a solar weapon should be able to volt shot enemies. I think that would be a little bit too too out there. But I think that if it gave your subclass weapons those subclass specific perks, you would see a massive uptick in this. I think that also the last thing I would do is give it, basically when you get kills with a weapon that matches your subclass, it grants additional super energy as well. So yeah, two things. Number one, adding the subclass specific weapon perks to your subclass specific weapons. And then when you get kills with the weapons that match your subclass, you get additional super energy, which I think an exotic over here does that. Yeah, so I don't know, combine those two. Astrocyte Verse. Okay, this is one of the ones that is very difficult to adjust, because this is a movement based exotic. This exotic perk, Move to Survive, blink further and more frequently. Weapon readies quickly out of blink, and radar remains up. Provides a moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons. This is one I don't think I would change at all, for the simple fact that it's just movement. It is just a movement based exotic. I would have said in the past add an airborne effectiveness bonus to it, but it's already got that. So yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd touch this one, for the fact that it is a movement based exotic. On to Fellwinter's Helm, Warlord's End. Powered melee final blows create a burst of energy that weakens nearby targets. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the radius and of the burst, and lengthen the weakening effect. Okay, so this helmet, again, it saw a lot of use back in the day, but it has since dropped off. I think, let's talk about the reason why it's dropped off. People started realizing that, the powered final blows, melee final blows, as well as the finishers, it's nice to have that blinding effect, but it's just not that great. You could use a blinding grenade launcher to basically give the same effect, and you could use, a void subclass, your void subclass, which out of the old gods, to do something very similar. I think. I think the area of effect of the like blinding effect that it has should be much bigger. I think that should be much bigger. Number one. Number two, I would say that the weakening, because I think if I'm not mistaken, the weakening effect is similar to just weaken, which is 15%. Increase that to something major like 30% would be substantially better. I would also say, since it builds kind of into the finishers, as well as powered melees, I would say that when you kill an enemy with a finisher or a powered melee, you get overshield. Maybe not void overshield, maybe, have the generic overshield or something. But some kind of overshield to help. Maybe on a powered melee final blow against a thrall, you get, a third of an overshield. But if you finish a champion, you get a full overshield. Something along those lines would help that. Now, I also think one of the big reasons why you don't see this in high level content is, of course, because powered melees don't kill quite the same as they do in low level content. So I would say give it an additional feature so that that makes it where your powered melee kills, or your powered melees deal more damage against combatants. Importantly, combatants, not people in the Crucible. I don't know why this thing just does not want to stay up there. Sorry. But powered melees, increase the damage of them by 35%. Just something to add on to make the melees more potent. That way you could see this helmet potentially being used in high level content. I was also, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I would increase the radius of the blinding effect. Maybe not the weaken effect, but the blinding effect for sure. So that when you finish a champion, like, you are 100% safe from enemies that are anywhere even remotely close to you for at least 5 seconds or something like that. Other than that, I think that's all I would change. Actually, no, I take that back. The only other thing I might say should change is when you get a powered melee final blow. No, never mind. I changed my mind on that. Yeah, so with this one, powered melee final blow gives you an overshield, and the powered melee final blow, or the powered melee deals additional damage, and of course, the area of effect is larger. And that's all I changed for Felwinter Town. Let's move on to Dawn Chorus. Okay. Rites of Ember. Your Daybreak projectiles cause targets to scorch on contact. Your Scorch effect deals more damage, and you gain a small amount of melee energy each time your Scorch effects damage a target. This, I think that the issue this exotic had is when it launched, it was bad. It was very bad, and it's just kind of been forgotten about. It is also kind of pretty ugly too. I'm not gonna lie. You look like you got an alien head. Maybe take off these things. That would look cool. But anyways, yeah. So this basically is a solar exotic that improves all your burn effects. I would say the first change that needs to happen. Your Daybreak projectiles, instead of causing scorch, they need to ignite targets. Anytime a Daybreak projectile hits, it needs to ignite the targets with this exotic on. Okay. That'd be the first change I would make. Your scorch effects deal more damage. So I don't know what the damage is. But I feel like it would be, I feel like it should be at least like probably tripled. At least, yeah, I'd say at least triple, because Scorch is not the same thing as Burn. Back in the day, when you had effects that would burn enemies, they felt a lot stronger than Scorch does. When you, for example, when you kill something with, what's it called? an incandescent weapon, and it scorches enemies around them, they don't take like hardly any damage. So I think that at least tripling that to have a much stronger effect would be is a critical part of making this exotic better. You gain a small amount of melee energy each time that your scorch affects a damaged targets. I think that's relatively reasonable. I would also say, so I think this exotic used to increase the time in which targets would burn. I think that the last thing it should do is when you scorch an enemy, they lose scorch stacks a lot slower. Currently, if you are hit with like a incendiary grenade, for example, and you get, I think, is it 80 or is it 60? I can't remember which one it is, but you get, let's say 80. Let's say an enemy is scorched for 80 scorch stacks. Those scorch stacks are gone in about like 1.5 seconds. They go away very quickly. Like once, you're scorched for about a second and then they're gone. I would say the drop off of scorch is, I would say at least like tripled. I don't know, maybe tripled. That way, when you scorch a target, like they're gonna burn for a long time. Okay, their burn is going to deal increased damage to them. And yeah, I think that would help the Dawn Cores out. But yeah, daybreak projectiles. Yeah, so I think that covers it. So number one, daybreak projectiles, when they hit a target, they ignite the target. Your scorch deals more damage and burns for longer. And then I wouldn't change the melee. I wouldn't change the melee effect. I think the melee effect is fine where it is. Especially if they are burning for longer, that'll basically almost guarantee a melee energy back. But yeah, let's go on to the next one. The Fallen Sunstar. I'm just gonna say it right now. I think this one is completely fine where it is. It's seeing a lot of play currently, but here, let's read the perk first. Ionic Conductor. Ionic traces you create move faster and grant you additional ability energy. Nearby allies also gain ability energy when you collect an ionic trace. So basically what this does is it makes ionic traces move much faster and much more aggressively towards the player. And then when you collect them, instead of getting like the 12.5% that you would normally get, you get 25%. So basically once you get 4 of these, you have an empty ability back. And then of course the second feature is that it gives nearby allies class ability energy as well. Not as much, not the 25%. I think it's like the 12.5%. But this thing is nutty good with Arc 3.0. And I think that once Arc is kind of rained out, with Strand upcoming, you'll see this less. But I don't think it's busted by any means. And I don't think it needs any real change for it. Yeah, I think it's in a really like almost a perfect spot where it is currently. Let's go on to Sunbracers. All right, so this is our first gauntlet. Okay, increases the duration of solar grenades. Solar melee kills grant unlimited grenade energy for a brief time. So basically, solar grenades, of course, duration is increased, and then solar melee kills grants. It says unlimited solar grenade energy. You get to throw about 5 grenades. You get 5 seconds of infinite grenade energy, so you can throw about 5 grenades. This is these are pretty good. These I think don't see more use because people just don't realize how deadly they can be and how great they can be, because you can build into a build that basically guarantees your melee ability back every time you spam these grenades. The loop here, I would say, actually no, the only thing I would say is that solar grenades should scorch targets like regardless. I think that would be a fair enough change. So currently when currently when you throw a solar grenade, upon the initial impact, enemies are scorched in the area around them, or around, yeah, around them. But then the scorch doesn't persist. The scorch will start wearing off. I think that anytime you touch this grenade, you should gain scorch stacks, so that one grenade will basically guarantee an ignition. So if you stick a boss with one of the grenades and then throw the rest of the grenades around at enemies, that boss will ignite at least one time for the duration of that solar grenade. And I think that'd be a fair option. You know, that way you would not necessarily have to use the touch of flame aspect, because I don't think touch of flame makes it where it'll scorch enemies the full duration. But yeah, that's the only change I'd make, is solar grenades with this exotic equipped would constantly scorch targets, and if a target is in the solar grenade for almost the full duration, I wouldn't say the full duration, but almost full duration, they would ignite and explode. That's the only change I'd make for Sunbracers. I think these are really good. I think they're just underrated because of some other options. All right, the Karnstein armlets. These are very good. Vampire's Caress. Melee kills instantly restore a large amount of health and continue to restore health afterwards for a short generation. I think the primary issue we see with these is, again, in high level content, getting a melee kill is kind of difficult. I would say just as a change I would make to these to make them even better is when you hit an enemy with your charged melee, it gives you the same effect. You don't have to get a kill with it, but hitting an enemy with your charged melee, so your Numbral Blast on Stasis, for example, that basically can't get a kill. It can only... Gosh, I'm about to just take that and throw it out the window. Your Penumbral Blast can't get a kill, usually, but make it so that once you, if you hit a target with it, you will get that health regen, as well as that melee energy. And I think that would bring these up to a much better place, because in high level content, you know, you're using solar for the Well of Radiance, and you throw your melee out, you hit an enemy, boom, there's that health, there's that big chunk of health, and that health regeneration that you wouldn't normally get with just this melee. I would also say add some type of airborne effectiveness benefit, just a small airborne effectiveness stat to all weapons. And I think that would be good for the Karnstein armors. Winter's Guile. Okay, so these are the exact same as the Worm God's Caress from yesterday. Which I believe one of two changes. Number one, either revert the damage so that they can now deal 7.5 times damage to targets when you get times whatever many stacks, or increase the duration from 5 seconds to 10 at least. 7 minimum, but 10 preferably. And that would be the only change I'd make to these exotics. Exact same as the Worm God's Caress. Okay. Aeon Soul. I'm not going to cover the Aeon Soul exactly, because I said, you know, my Titan video, I talked about the Aeon Soul and the changes that I would personally make to these. So I don't want to cover these in every video, but just a couple changes to the perks here. These two would be necessary. Go check out the Titan video if you want to see the Aeon Soul. Ophidian Aspect. Weapons ready and reload very quickly. Melee range is extended. Provide a small benefit to the airborne effective stat of all weapons. These are obviously a PvP based exotics. And these, because of that reason right there, I don't think these needs to be changed. Okay. These are already very widely used in the Crucible. I guarantee you almost every Crucible game you get in, if there's a Warlock, or if there's a couple Warlocks, at least one of them is going to be using Ophidian Aspect, because Ophidian Aspect is great. The weapon ready and reload speed is very, very good. And of course, the extended melee range is also very nice on top of that as well. But yeah, I wouldn't change Ophidian Aspect because of their place in Crucible. If you wanted to make them somewhat more PvP or PvE oriented, you could increase the melee damage slightly or something like that. But I think these are just so much of a PvP exotic that I wouldn't really I don't think they need much change in the way of PvP. And I don't see people using these in PvE unless you absolutely busted the perk. Laws of Ahamkara. The Whispers gain an additional melee charge. Very similar to the Titans armamentarium recommendations yesterday. I think that's oh crap, I don't remember what I said about the armamentarium yesterday, but I think that getting melee kills should recharge your melee ability. And that would just amplify these tremendously. These exotics, just like the armamentarium, are very specific in that they do something very free. And if you build into melees, these are great. If you don't build into melees, these aren't that good. But yeah, I think that's for these, similar to armamentarium, where I would just getting melee charged melee kills, that is, grants melee energy. No, you know what? Just melee kills in general, even uncharged melee kills, would grant melee energy. That's the only change I think I would make. Well, actually, hold on. Take that back. I think that. So, no, I think that's fine because warlocks have a lot of ranged melee, so I think that's a fine change. And that's the only thing I would do. All right. Controverse hold. So Controverse hold, of course, at one point was the dominant exotic for Void Warlock. It's perk Chaotic Exchanger. Resist incoming damage while charging your Void Grenade. Charge Void Grenades return grenade energy on hits. So basically, when you're holding your, what is it called? Chaos Accelerant. When you're holding Chaos Accelerant, you get, and I guess Feed the Void too, you get bonus damage resistance. That is pretty good. That's pretty good. And then Charged Void Grenades return grenade energy on hits. This used to have the potential to basically give you your full grenade energy back, but now it's changed. I think now you can only get about 60 to 70% of your grenade back, but it's still very good. The change that I would potentially make to these, I don't know if I'd make any changes. I think that these gauntlets are very strong where they stand. Yeah, resistance to incoming damage. Because I think it's pretty strong, like 40 or 50%, which is a lot. And then charge void grenades, return grenade energies on hits. I guess the one thing that I would love to see happen is if you get grenade kills, maybe grenade kills grant some type of benefit. Some type of benefit. Whether it's, faster reload speed for your weapons, additional rift energy, maybe additional melee energy. Build into the idea that's, you can build into the idea of using your grenades for, I guess, aggressive. I don't know. I think it needs something else. I think it needs some kind of benefit. Not a strong benefit. I don't think it should instantly give you Devour, because then you could use these. You basically have all three aspects active at once. But yeah, maybe a faster reload speed, recharge your melee just slightly, or your rift ability just slightly. One of the two, not both. When you deal damage to an enemy with a grenade. But I think that's the only change I'd make to these. These are pretty solid. You see these used quite a bit in PvP. Not to the point I think that they need a nerf. But yeah. Ooh. All right. Let's move on to Getaway Artist. All right. Getaway Artist, dynamic duo. So you press basically your grenade button, long press it, to convert your arc grenade into an arc soul and become amplified. The arc soul function as an autonomous turret. This is such a simple exotic You turn your grenade into an amplified arc soul. Apologies. Into an amplified arc soul. It's pretty good. I don't know how they could change it. Other than actually no, I take it back. When the arc soul gets kills, when the arc soul gets kills, it could grant grenade energy back, just so that you could have a constant cycle of, building into it. And I think that's the only thing I would do. I think that could be good. It's tough because I don't think this exotic could be good in high level content, but I don't know how to make it very. I don't want to say strong. I don't know how to make it viable in high level content. I guess if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know. It's definitely, that's a tough one. Um one thing you could potentially do is arc grenades. Yeah, let's say this. You could say arc grenades. When you throw an arc grenade, so obviously you want to change it into a arc soul, but when you throw an arc grenade, it's no. Actually, I don't like that idea. I don't know. We might have to come back to this one because this one's a toughie. But let's go ahead and move on for now. Necrotic grip. Grasp of the Devourer. Damaging combatants poisons them, dealing increased damage over time. Defeating a poisoned combatant spreads the condition. Provides a moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness of all weapons of sorrow. Okay, so damaging combatants poisons them. Now I think that one of the things that it fails to mention here is it has to be melee damage, if I'm not mistaken. It's not just, you can't just use your gun, your Vex Mythic class, or your Rose to hurt somebody. It has to be your melee attack. So melee damaging combatants poisons them, dealing increased damage over time. Defeating a poisoned combatant spreads the condition. These are pretty strong where they are right now. I think the issue is there's not a subclass associated with them. And so it makes it difficult for people to want to use these. Also in high level content, which, oh, mind you, I don't think the ranged melees work with these. I think it has to be an actual melee hit. Again, though, it's kind of the same situation. In high level content, are you really going to go down there and try to do a melee battle? I think possibly a good option to change this is when you are surrounded by enemies, you gain a resistance to melee damage. Yeah, so if you run to a group of thralls and you hit, and you punch one, you have damage resistance for as long as you're near those thralls, and for maybe like 2 seconds afterwards. I think that would help it at least some. Of course, when you pair it with things, especially things like oh, what's that submachine gun? Osteostriga. It's very, very strong. Okay, it helps Osteostriga, and Osteostriga helps it, and they work very well together. But unfortunately, not everybody wants to use Osteostriga when using these. They're S tier if you're using Osteostriga, and they're not if you're not. So yeah, I think that's at least giving some kind of damage resistance while surrounded by enemies would help these tremendously. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Nothing Manacles. This one is quite simple. You gain additional scatter grenade charge, and it enables tracking it for your scatter grenade projectiles. These, in my opinion, these are fantastic. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, blah blah blah." The primary change I would make for these is the tracking that exists on these sucks, and I think the tracking needs to be substantially stronger. So that would be it. I would say that, you know, when you throw a scatter grenade, the tracking, the little bouncies last for a little bit longer in the environment, and they track much more aggressively towards enemies. So basically every one of them hits an enemy. That way, if you throw a scatter grenade at, you know, a knight, for example, and you hit it close to them, all those projectiles are gonna bounce and immediately go and hit, you know, the knight over there. That's the only change I think I would make for these. The additional scatter grenade is very strong. Of course, ever since we lost Devour, where you could consume your grenade, these kind of lost a lot of viability. But I don't think Bungie will ever bring that back. Although we could hope and dream and wish for it. Maybe an additional thing they could add is you can now consume your scatter grenade to activate Devour. And yeah, I'd increase the tracking, and then maybe that last thing where you you can consume your grenade to activate Devour would be the only change I'd make to this. Okay, on to the second page. We are almost done here. Osmiomancy gloves. Okay, so these are hot right now. These are super hot right now. And I would almost say they need a nerf, but I don't know how, because the thing that they do is so simple. And it's not the fact that these need a nerf, it's the combination of perks and subclass fragments and aspects that make this these gauntlets incredibly powerful. So, Fervid Cold Snap. Your Cold Snap grenades have an additional charge that recharges quicker on direct impact. The Seekers spawn from Cold Snap grenades travel further. So, essentially, you kind of get basically a Touch of Winter Cold Snap grenade that doesn't spawn a little crystal. And when you hit an enemy directly with a Cold Snap, it reduces the cooldown substantially. This exotic is quite frequently paired with Bleak Watcher. Bleak Watcher, of course, increases the cooldown timer of it, but the combination of perks that exist in the game totally circumvent that. I want to say this needs a nerf, but I don't know how, and I don't know how I would change it, because all it does is give you an additional grenade charge, and make the Seeker go further. And I'm a little biased towards these. It's hard because I love these exotics. They're good. Okay, these gloves are fantastic. I think, I don't know. It's difficult. I think that they're problematic, but I don't think that there's any way to change them without hurting the Cold Snap grenade itself, if that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know. This one's a tough one. I think that it's I don't think that it can. I think it needs a nerf. I don't think it can be nerfed though, because it's already so simple. It's like I said, it's the fragments and aspects and the mods that we have access to that make it so good. So this one's a weird one. It needs a nerf, but it can't get one. On to Starfire Protocol. Okay. Fusion Harness. Now this is probably one of the top exotics right now. But it's exotic perk here. Fusion Harness. Fusion grenades have an additional charge and recharge from empowered weapon damage. Fusion grenade kills grants rift energy. Okay. So this is used almost in almost every single in-game build and non-in-game build. Like, it's used so much, and it's very powerful. So let's look at it's gonna need a nerf. In my opinion, it's gonna need a nerf. But let's look at how we can potentially nerf it. Okay, fusion grenades have an additional charge and recharge from empowered weapon damage. I think that potentially, number one, removing that second part, recharging from powered weapon damage, just take that out. And I know that's hurting it a lot, but again, this exotic, even when we have Strand, once Strand's newness wears off, this exotic is going to come right back into the fold, and it's going to be right there at number 1 for the Warlocks. So we need to tweak it somehow, and I think that removing the recharge or reducing the recharge you get from empowered weapon damage would help tremendously. And then fusion grenade kills grant rift energy. This is one I I don't want to cut too much into the synergy and the playstyle behind it, but I think that fusion grenade kills should grant less rift energy. I think that'd be helpful. Gosh, this one's a difficult one to to nerf here. Yeah, I think that just giving them an additional grenade, reducing the recharge rate. Like when you have this on, it gets a longer, fusion grenades have a longer cooldown rate. And then remove the recharge from empowered weapon damage. Okay, and then fusion grenades grant rift energy. Reduce the amount of energy that fusion grenades grants. And I think that would be a relatively reasonable nerf for this exotic. Again, it's a tough one to nerf because it has a specific loop, and if you take too much out of the loop, it doesn't do much. But it's a little bit too hot right now, so I think those changes would help reduce its viability. Not too much, not destroy it, but reduce it. Okay, on to Wings of Sacred Dawn. Exotic perk Tome of Dawn. When Dawnblade is equipped, aiming weapons while you're mid-air suspends you there for a short time, improving airborne accuracy, reducing incoming flinch, and granting damage resistance. Weapon hits extend this effect's duration. Provides a large benefit to airborne effectiveness stat of all weapons. So this is a very, very strange exotic. And I say it's very strange because it does something. It does it wonderfully, but the play style of actually using that something, which is airborne combat, is not always super beneficial. In the Crucible, for example, you go up in the air to snipe. You are a sitting duck. If you are up and you can see the whole battlefield, that means the whole battlefield can see you. People out of your line of sight can see you. And yeah, you have damage resistance, but is damage resistance going to stop a sniper headshot? In PvP, or I'm sorry, in PvE, a similar deal. You fly up in the air. If there's if you're facing in a Grandmaster Knife on, there's an ogre coming at you. How long are you going to be able to sit up there before, that ogre, for example, shreds you down almost instantly? And I know it gives you damage resistance, but I don't think it's as much as it could be to be beneficial. So how would I change it? I would say when the only change I'd make is when you're airborne, instead of being locked in the air, as long as you're aiming down sights and dealing damage, you won't lose height. You will float at your current level, and you can strafe side to side, front and back at a pretty substantial speed. Okay, like a tier 10 mobility speed of strafing. That way you can dodge attacks. If a knight is shooting at you, you're not just sitting there. You can move left, right, forward, backward to dodge attacks, all while attacking enemies yourself. This is a flight, essentially an airborne / flight based exotic. Let's amplify that by adding the ability to truly fly. Plus, look at these. They look badass, and they've got a cute little book on them. But yeah, that's the only thing I'd change. I'd say when you have this, you can actually, at a pretty substantial speed, move forward, backwards, side to side, while aiming down sights and damaging enemies in the air. Okay, on to Vesper Radius. So this is a pretty memey exotic. A meme-ish. Is that the word? I think meme-ish is a better word. Exotic here. Planetary Torment. Rift releases an arc shockwave when cast. Rift energy recharges faster when you are surrounded by enemies. This is often paired with the Frost Pulse aspect on stasis. So it freezes enemies and then shocks and kills them. And that is a pretty fair way to play. But I think that it's overall it's a terrible exotic. It's very, very weak. I think number one, the Rift Arc Shockwave needs to deal substantially more damage. I would say it should also jolt targets. And I would almost say it would be really neat to give this. It'd be kind of crazy, but it'd be kind of neat to give this some sort of anti-champion feature to it. You know, like overload, you know, putting your rift down. If you shock an overload with that, they're staggered. I think that would be a really, really cool feature to have on this. But I think that the primary thing is that arc shockwave needs to be bigger, and it needs to deal a lot more damage. When I say bigger, I'm talking, or when I say more damage, I'm talking about like super level damage. Maybe not that high, but it needs to kill everything around you. It needs to kill strong enemies. It needs to kill weak enemies. I don't think it should obliterate enemies, but in high level content, it should easily kill everything within, you know, a 12-meter distance from the edge of your rift. Rift energy recharges faster when you're surrounded by enemies. That's pretty good. The recharge is pretty decent when you're surrounded by enemies. But yeah, I think that arc shockwave needs to be much stronger. And I would also say build it into arc 3.0. Give it, you know, enemies that don't die from it are jolted, and that would help it see a lot more play. So number one, increase the radius of the explosion, increase the damage of the explosion, and then jolt enemies when they're hit. Sanguine Alchemy. This is probably the most forgotten exotic in the game. Yeah, blood magic. Weapon kills while standing in any rift. Pause the rift's countdown, extending its duration. Further kills maintain and extend the length of the pause. Oh boy. So at one point, this was an absolute unit in Destiny 2. This thing, at one point when you're standing in a rift, basically gave you wall hacks while you're standing in a rift. And it was very, very good. Unfortunately, it became problematic. And people started noticing that it was very, very good, started abusing it. And so that made Bungie say, no, we can't have this happen. So they changed it. Unfortunately, when they changed it, they turned it into the biggest, I want to say it, the biggest piece of poo that has ever existed. So let's talk about how this can change. So previously, of course, it had the ability to see through walls, and its perk here is blood magic. I like the idea of, it's tough. Basically, standing in a rift extends the duration. I think that's the first thing that we could do potentially to make it better. Is oh, here, sorry. Let me see. Okay. Sorry, I was checking out something because a person made a YouTube comment about a change that they think would work. But I think for this one, number one, the rifts need to be better. So empowering rift needs to give you more than just 15 or 20 or 25%. I can't remember how much it is. It needs to give you a stronger effect. Healing rift needs to heal you faster and give you a stronger overshield if you're going to sit and commit to maintaining, you know, just sitting in your rift. I think that also it should have some sort of feature to help the rift ability in other ways. Maybe weapon kills with, you know, a matching elements recharge your rift faster. And I think that sounds like a perk on another exotic, but I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. But yeah, it needs additional functionality to the rift aspect of it. Give the rift, you know, not an empowering rift. In an empowering rift, deal more damage. Okay, and then in a healing rift, you get more health. Or hell, I would say if you want to go crazy with this, when you put down the rift, it's both a healing and empowering rift. And it doesn't and maybe say it doesn't recharge as a balancing thing. It doesn't recharge while you're standing in the rift. Actually, I think I like that one more. So, basically, what it would do is when you cast a rift, you cast both a healing and an empowering rift with added benefits. Okay, so instead of being a 20 or 15, 20, whatever the empowering rift is, it deals 5% more damage while you're in there. And then whatever the heal rate of the healing rift is increased by, 20% or something like that. Then while you're standing in it, it does not recharge. Yeah. Or here's a fun one. It doesn't recharge on its own, but as you get kills will recharge it. Okay, so you're in a strike or something, you put it down, and you're killing enemies. Every kill gets you 5% rift energy. So you get 20 kills inside your rift that is basically lasting forever. Then you get, yeah, I think that'd be a good change. You get rift energy. So basically, the changes I would make to this exotic, one more time. Number 1, any rift you put down is both a healing and empowering rift. Number 2, the healing and empowering effects of them are amplified. And number 3, it does not recharge on its own unless you're getting kills inside the rift. And I think that would be that would create for some really fun and interesting gameplay loops, because if somebody's, let's say a warlock in the crucible puts this down, you just don't go to the area. It's pretty easy. You just stay away from the area. PvE, you can put it down behind a safe place. You and your allies, are shooting out of it, but primarily, it's helping you. As you're getting kills, you're recharging. Yeah, I don't know. I think that would be a pretty awesome change to it, and I think that would help it see some use again. But yeah, that's Sanguine Alchemy. This is probably the most forgotten exotic on this list. I would say even more forgotten. No, I wouldn't say more forgotten than Apotheosis Veil, because Apotheosis Veil died so long ago. Well, this came out at the same time. They both died so long ago. They're equal. All right, Chromatic Fire. Here we go. Okay. Crystalline Transistor. I don't know why it does that. Precision final blows with your kinetic weapon create an explosion in the element of your subclass. This is a really, really straightforward exotic. It gives your kinetic weapons essentially Dragonfly. It is most often and best paired with Firefly weapons, like Fatebringer, Ace of Spades, because you can have the Firefly explosion and then the whatever subclass you're using explosion. So if you're using Solar, you get Solar Explosion 1 and then Solar Explosion number 2, which is pretty cool. Unfortunately, it doesn't see a lot of play in high-level content. And I think the reason why is because the explosions just don't deal all that much damage. Now, I think that the best way to go about doing this is the precision final blows you get with your kinetic weapon are stronger. Yeah, I think they should just be stronger. Because what happens is when you're shooting an enemy, right? You kill them with a precision kill, okay? They don't immediately explode. They kind of do this thing where they flip off, they swell up, and then pop, almost like a balloon, okay? And that's when the explosion happens. That's what makes it so nice to pair with like Fatebringer, because you got the immediate, or not Fatebringer, Firefly. You get the immediate explosion from Firefly, then you have the secondary explosion afterwards. I think that the secondary explosion should be stronger, and I also think that it should have some sort of subclass keyword associated with it. For example, if you are using stasis, okay, and stasis is an awkward one because stasis, of course, stasis weapons are not kinetic, but let's say you're using, let's just say Fatebringer, okay, Fatebringer, you get your precision kill, the Firefly goes off, then the second explosion slows all the enemies around it. Okay, if you're using Arc, the explosion will blind enemies. If you're using Void, it will make enemies volatile. If you're using Solar, it will scorch enemies. I think that that would be an awesome idea on top of the explosion. The important thing is it's on top of the explosion, because if you take away the explosion, this thing is going to be completely useless. So on top of the explosion, you also get those subclass specific benefits, and I think that'd be a good change. It would help to build into subclass keywords and subclass synergy. So yeah, I think that would be pretty awesome. So that's Chromatic Fire. Let's go to Phoenix Protocol. Phoenix Protocol. Now this is a super base exotic. Battle Hearth. Kills and assists while standing in your Well of Radiance. Returns super energy up to 50%. Doesn't say that, but up to 50%. So with this exotic, I would... it's kind of a support-based exotic. I would build into some type of support. How I would build into that, I would say that add an additional feature here that says basically when Ember of Benevolence is applied, or when Ember of Benevolence is active, you gain a faster super cooldown. Okay, making it essentially so that, okay, you have this on as long as people are standing in your Well of Radiance, you get enough kills, you get 50% of your well back. If people stood there the whole 30 seconds, you get an additional, 30% of your super. That way, by the time your super is up, you're already at 80% on another super. Okay, and then any other builds that come into that can help get you back to that super. Would this potentially make it an infinite cycle of wells? Yes, and I'm okay with that. Obviously not in the Crucible. I think that in the Crucible, a little bit of a different story, but I don't think this has ever been an issue in the Crucible. So I'm not going to worry too much about the Crucible, but I think in PvE content, that change alone would help substantially, because then, you run out of rifts, say you don't get any kills, you drop your well and somebody Nova bombs all the group of enemies you're going to kill. As long as you can constantly be applying Ember Benevolence, your super is recharging a lot quicker. That's the only thing I think I would really change about this, because this already sees a reasonable amount of play for Warlocks, but I think that it needs a little bit more help to it. And then maybe you could add one, just something simple like kinetic weapon kills grant rift energy, or something easy like that, or solar weapon kills grant rift. I don't know, something like that to get healing rift energy, healing rift specifically. Just add a feature, but yeah, those are the only changes I would make to Phoenix Protocol. On to Storm Dancers Brace. Okay, this is another super based exotic. It's very good, but it needs some help. Ascending Amplitude. Each target you defeat with Storm Trance increases the damage you deal with it, and refunds super energy when Storm Trance ends. This is a tough one to add something onto that breaks away from the mold of other stuff. First of all, I think that everything that we see here with this now in terms of Ascending Amplitude is perfectly fine, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it ramps up to ×10 stacks, which gives you 50% in total. Each stack gives you 5%, up to 50% more damage with the super, and then of course, you get the super energy back after it's over. Roaming supers are in a rough spot, which is one of the reasons why you don't see this very often. Now, I would say a good way to potentially help this exotic is building it somehow into other energy kills. Maybe energy weapon kills. I don't want to say energy weapon kills grant additional super energy. I think that that's lame. Actually, here you go. I think a great addition to this, enemies that you don't kill, or actually enemies that you hit with your super, become jolted, right? Then add the last thing, which is enemies suffer enemies who are jolted stay jolted for longer, and the jolt deals more damage to that enemy and the other enemies around it. This means that if you're using Aikilo's SMG with this exotic, your jolts are going to be really, really strong. Much stronger than a regular jolt. On top of this ascending amplitude that helps as well. And I think that's the only change I'd make to it. Really, because I think that if you amplify the jolts that you get from grenades and weapons and stuff like that, it's gonna bring this up to a much higher spot. I would probably, if it did that, I'd probably use it, and especially if you're super jolted enemies, so that way you're shocking chaining, you're shocking and chaining lightning. The jolted target, it takes enough damage to hit that jolt threshold, and they're jolted with another bit of lightning. I think that would make your super just insanely powerful for ad clear, and potentially even boss damage, maybe, if you got enough stacks. But again, when you're out of super, it would have that added benefit of helping your subclass. And yeah, that's all I would change about Stormdancer's Brace. Let's go to the next one. Mantle of Battle Harmony. Absorption cells. Takedowns with weapons that have a damage type matching your subclass element grant super energy. While your super energy is full, you instead gain a temporary bonus to weapon damage of the type matching your subclass element. This is a difficult one because this is a very, very good. This is a very good exotic. This is a very, very good exotic, and I think it sees a fair amount of play. I don't know how I'd change this one. I don't know if I would change this one. I don't think I would nerf it because it doesn't see an insane amount of play that makes me feel like it's warranted with a nerf. But it doesn't see a minuscule amount of play that makes me feel like, oh, it needs a buff. I really think that it's fine where it is. It helps you with your super. It helps you when you have your super fully charged. It helps you get your super, and then it gives you a bonus, that's separate from super damage. So I don't think I would change anything on it. I really don't. Yeah, I think it's in a fair spot. Let's move on to, okay, here we go. We're into the boots now. Transversive steps. Now, transversive steps, nothing I would change on these because these, again, are a movement-based exotic. And movement-based exotics don't, really need any nerfs. Basically, strange protractors sprint speed is increased after a short time sprinting. Your current equipped weapon is automatically reloaded. Same place as Dune Marchers. Okay, they are a movement-based exotic. I feel like no nerfs are needed or buffs are needed. On to Lunafaction boots. Now, Lunafaction boots at one point were the absolute premier choice for for DPS phases and stuff. Of course, that was also back in the day when auto reloading was a thing. Alchemical etchings. Your rift gains the additional ability to increase weapon reload speeds. Empowering rift makes weapons effective over longer ranges. Okay, so how would I go about changing these? Because these are in desperate need of a buff. They see next to no play, and it's yeah. Okay, so increase weapon reload speeds. I would almost say, and this is debatable. This is debatable, but I feel like bringing back automatic weapon reloading for primaries would be a good thing for this exotic. I don't think you could bring back auto reloading for all weapons, because again, you'd have the rocket launcher insanity where you're just shooting constant rockets over and over and over. But I think that at least allowing everybody's primaries to be automatically reloaded, I think that's a fair enough trade. I also think that healing and empowering rifts should make weapons effective over longer range. I don't think it should just be empowering rift. I think that both rifts should allow you to have increased range. And the last thing, I know it needs something else. It needs something else to help it. And I don't know, I can't really place what it would be. Let's start with those for now. Let's say auto reloading primaries, number one, and then healing rift and empowering, just the rift in general, makes weapons effective over longer ranges. You know what? This might be a hot take, but I would say granted the ability to have an increased fire rate, increased weapons fire rates while standing in the rift. You know, if you're using a 600 round per minute auto rifle, increase by 10%. Okay, so from 600 now it's 660. For a 150 scout, it is now 165 rounds per minute. Is that right? Yeah, 165 rounds per minute. Give every weapon a 10% speed boost. And that'd be pretty awesome. And I know somebody's going to say, what about something that is already at max, like trace rifles or, 900 round per minute, whatever's. Increase those too. Okay. 900 round per minute SMG or machine gun is going to be ramped up to 990 rounds per minute. Trace rifles are going to fire at 1100 rounds per minute. Per minute. I think that's fair. I don't know how technical that is to do, but I think that would be a great change because that would help to increase. I definitely think that would help to increase the viability of these boots. And it might even be busted for damage. It might allow you to put out, if everybody's putting out just basically 10% more damage at every boss phase, I don't know. I think that could be a good idea. So auto reload weapons, primary weapons, auto reload primary weapons, change empowering rift to healing and empowering rift, makes weapons effective over longer ranges, and of course, while standing in the rift, weapons gain a increase to rate of fire or to rounds per minute, whatever. That's Lunafaction boots. Geomag stabilizers. Close enough. Damaging targets with Chaos Reach extends its duration. This is very, very simple, very straightforward. However, it is a super only exotic. I think that with this Chaos Reach. So Chaos Reach, I don't see Chaos Reach being used very often. But I know that these boots turn it into an absolute powerhouse. You know what I would say? I would say that in addition to damaging targets with Chaos Duration extending its durations, I would say that the more damage, I want to say either the more damage you do or the more kills you get. Actually, I'll say this. Kills that you get will recharge Chaos Reach up to 50%. I think that would tremendously help this exotic because not only do you get a substantially longer Chaos Reach super, but if you're getting kills with it, you can now get it 50% back. But it needs something that is not super related to help it out a lot. And how to make this not super related. I feel like we need something to do with amplified. I would say an awesome one. Well, sprinting while amplified reduces damage. Okay, and it reduces damage by a substantial amount, by like 70%. Okay, I think that would be pretty. I think that would be a very simple change, but a very nice change. You're running around, you're taking 70% less damage. That's a pretty huge deal. Even in high level content, especially if you can manage to to use M&K and spin in a circle while you revive, you're taking 70% less damage. And then run back to cover. Yeah. I think that as long as you're sprinting with the speed boost, you should get damage reduction. That's the only thing I'd change, or those are the two things I would change about Geomag stabilizers. Of course, is super kills granting Chaos Reach energy back, and then sprinting while amplified gives you 70% damage resistance. Let's move on to the Promethean Spur. Okay, now these ones are very, very interesting. Embers of Light. Defeating combatants or guardians while Daybreak is active creates a healing and empowering rift at their location. Sound familiar? While standing in any rift, solar weapon final blows grant rift energy. While your rift energy is full, final blows consume your rift energy, creating a healing and empowering rift at the target's location. Essentially, the loop for this is you get a solar kill, it makes a healing / empowering rift wherever that enemy died. Then you run to it, get kills, and you just kind of chain, and you're not so much making your own battle decisions. You're kind of at the mercy of where enemies are. I don't really like that. I don't really like that, you're at the mercy of where enemies are. And it almost feels like it forces you into a situation where you have to play with two primary weapons. You have to play with a kinetic weapon that can be your weapon that you kill enemies with, regularly, and then your solar weapon, so that as you can get kills, recharge your rift up to whatever, up to 95%, and then switch to your kinetic weapon, use your kinetic weapon. That way you don't accidentally put your rift somewhere that's not really in a good spot. I think that this needs a change to eliminate that. So let's figure it out. First of all, I think the defeating combatants while Daybreak is active is totally fine. Okay, if you kill an enemy with Daybreak active, wherever they die, spawning a healing and empowering rift, that is completely fine. While standing in your rift, solar weapon final blows grant rift energy. I think that's also fine. Okay, so here's where I want to change. While your rift energy is full, final blows consume your rift energy and create a healing and empowering rift at the target's location. I feel like the only change I would make to this is have it set so that there's somewhat of a more defined way of choosing where your rift is going to be. I don't think that just putting your rift down somewhere is optimal. Maybe okay, here you go. Maybe for 5 seconds after you get rift energy back, you have the ability to put down an empowering and a healing rift wherever you want, but you have only 5 seconds to do it. Okay, because I know if you made it where this exotic, you could put it wherever you wanted, it would be much too broken. Okay, but I think that, okay, like I'm sitting here, I'm using Vex, I'm killing all these enemies, I just get my rift back. I have 5 seconds to decide where I want to go to put the rift down. Okay, and it would start, okay, it starts with, I have healing rift on, I put my healing rift down, I get kills. Okay, as soon as I put that first one down, I get that first solar weapon kill, and I get my energy back. Then I have 5 seconds to decide where I want to put the next one. Okay, this would force players into that loop of, oh, okay, like I have to be quick. I don't have much time. I have to determine where I'm going to put it really quick, but it still gives them some freedom of where they want to put the rift down at. I think if you did that, you would probably see these skyrocket, because really the healing and empowering rift that's insanely good. And the fact that you get them back very, very quickly with solar weapons, these boots have the potential to be insane, but I think that their balancing factor is that you don't get to determine where the rift is. I think giving players a small amount of choice to where the rift can go is an appropriate idea to change these. And yeah, I think that's the only thing I'd change about these, is just give players a 5 second window to choose where the next rift is going to be. Then, of course, after that 5 seconds, you lose the ability to put the healing and empowering rift. Once you put a rift down, it's just healing or just empowering. Boots of the Assembler, possibly some of my favorite boots in the game, and these are very ugly. Put these on. Okay. Blessing of Order. Standing in a healing rift creates noble seekers that seek out allies that are not in a rift and heal them. Standing in an empowering rift creates noble seekers that grant both you and your ally a damage bonus. Each time a noble seeker finds one of your allies, the duration of your rift is briefly extended while you are standing in it. Provides a moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of the hand cannon Lumina. These are one of my favorite Warlock exotics. I like to play healer. I like to play a lot of support, and these can help me do that. I think they're in a really solid spot. I think there is one small change I would make, and that is the little seekers would spawn more frequently and seek allies out more frequently. What I feel like happens a lot is it'll make 1 or 2 seekers, they'll go off, they'll hit somebody, and then it'll take, forever for some more to come back. So I think that the only change I'd make is, they're constantly, it's every time you put it down, it spawns 2 seekers, that float up in the air, and then every 3 seconds it spawns 2 more, and then 2 more. Because the seekers, if they don't find somebody, they dissipate. They float up in the air, all off over here, and they dissipate. So changing just the amount of seekers that come would help tremendously. I also think that, of course, for those of you who don't know, Lumina actually pairs with this wonderfully, not because it gives an airborne effectiveness stat to Lumina, but also because it grants the little Lumina seekers that give you noble rounds, basically. I think those also need to spawn just kind of more regularly, because I'll be standing in a rift and I'll get like 5 seekers, like, oh my god, I just got 5, and then I'll shoot them all off, and then I won't get another one for literally 10 seconds. And the next time I put a rift down, I'll get 1 seeker that spawn, or one of those little noble noble remnants come towards me, and then 3 minutes later get another one. So it feels like. So I think that just spawning those more regularly would be a tremendous help to these exotics. And I'm trying not to be too biased here. I want to change them so they're absolutely busted. But yeah, I think that the only change that needs to happen is that they need to have a more consistent spawn to the seekers and a more consistent spawn to the noble remnants as well when you're using Lumina. But yeah, let's go right on to the next one. Hey, AMG Pro, how you doing, buddy? Secant filaments. Okay. All right, hang on. Did I get that? Yeah, secant filaments. Okay. Getting into the brand new stuff here, seems like. Devouring Rift. Casting an empowering rift will grant you devour. Damage dealt by you and your allies from within your empowering rift will disrupt combatants. Basically, this gives you devour when putting an empowering rift down. This is a tough one because that's a very powerful feature. This is okay. So these boots are basically the answer to players' complaints about Bungie removing the ability to consume your grenade to get devour, right? Now you can get devour for free by putting your rift down, and I think it actually extends the duration too. If you have the aspect, or the fragment rather, that increases devour's duration, sorry, you will get 22 seconds of devour, which is a lot. That's a long time to have devour. I think that's the biggest change I would make to this really is when you get kills inside of your empowering rift, it gives you empowering rift energy back. I mean, I don't know how else you would change it. This is already an incredibly powerful effect right here. Giving you devour is strong. Okay. Also, the ability to disrupt overload champions with any weapon is also pretty strong. Like that's pretty great. But yeah, I think that just adding, getting weapon kills while devour is active gives you rift. While devour is active gives you rift energy as well as grenade energy. I think it's, what does it give you? 20% grenade energy now. 20% grenade energy when devour is active. Same thing with empowering rift. Every kill you get gives you 20% rift energy back, and I think that would put these in a wonderful spot incredibly viable in high level content, as well as, well, all content really. But yeah, Secret Filaments. And our last one, Rain of Fire. Soaring Fusilier. Air dodge reloads all of your weapons and improves the airborne effectiveness of fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles. Looking at you, Vex Mythoclast. Final blows with these weapons make you radiant. Provides a moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness stat of fusion rifles and linear fusion rifles. So these I don't see these very often. They're freaking great boots. But I think they actually need a nerf to one tiny little aspect here. And that is right here. Final blows with these weapons make you radiant. I feel like you should not be made radiant unless you are in the air. Final blows with these weapons while airborne make you radiant. That's the only thing I'd change, because this is, I mean, these are a very, they help a specific weapon. They're very specific, you know, an exotic or legendary weapon based exotic that's that don't need much change. I mean, they make you fit into the idea of this flying fusion rifleman, whatever, up in the air, shooting fusion rifles down at people, shooting linear fusions. Of course, Vex is a fusion rifle. And yeah, so I think that the only thing I'd change is have final blows while airborne make you radiant. Don't think you should get it on the ground, because I think that's a little bit too easy. Because at the same, also in that account, you're being made radiant literally for free, which is pretty crazy. Like radiance in the Crucible, I think, is 10% more damage, especially with something like Vex Mythoclast that decreases Vex Mythoclast's time to kill, and it kills insanely fast when you are when you're radiant. So I don't think you should be able to get it on the ground. I think you should have to get a kill in the air in order to extend, or to make yourself radiant or extend your radiant. That's the only change I would make with Rain of Fire. And yeah. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for our Warlock exotic changes. I know there was a lot more of exotics that I felt like didn't need changes, but Warlock, in my opinion, is one of the more balanced classes in terms of its exotics. It has a lot of exotics that really fits the balancing mold quite well. But yeah, if you let me know what you guys think over on YouTube. Do you like the changes that I've offered for these? Do you think that some changes are OP? Do you think some changes need to be better? And then some of these, such as Astrite Verse, do you feel like they need more change that I felt they didn't? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.